The doctrine clearly stated. Where does Scripture say that Christ's blood cannot be shed for those who would not benefit thereby? Nowhere. But this fiction is foundational to the doctrine of limited atonement, that the cross of Christ provides a sure, secure, and real salvation for everyone God intended it to save, and for them alone. Homer Hoaxmar confesses the dire consequences of this belief. If Christ died for the elect only, then there are no possible benefits in that death of Christ for anyone else. Steele and Thomas insist. Christ's redeeming work was intended to save the elect only, and actually secured salvation for certain specified sinners. The gift of faith is infallibly applied by the Spirit to all for whom Christ died, thereby guaranteeing their salvation. This doctrine, however, is nowhere stated in the entire Bible in plain words, but is required by the rest of Tulip. Michael Horton argues, if Jesus died for every person, but not every person is saved, his death did not actually save anybody. If Christ died for people who will be in hell, his efforts cannot accurately be called a saving work, and there is no real saving power in the blood. Rather, the power would seem to be in the will of the creature. On the contrary, man's will has no power, but can only accept or reject the salvation God offers in the gospel. The Calvinist complaint is like saying that the 1 million, which a father deposits in a bank in his estranged son's name, is of no value unless the son accepts it. Obviously, the sinner's acceptance of Christ no more gives the blood of Christ saving power than the son's acceptance of the 1 million would give it monetary value. With no clear statement in all of Scripture to support this dogma, it must be defended by rationalizations. If Christ died for all men, and all men are not saved, the cross of Christ is of no effect. Calvary is a sham. Of course, that doesn't follow. Otherwise, giving the 10 Commandments was a sham, because all men did not keep them. Even Sproul acknowledges that the value of Christ's atonement is sufficient to cover the sins of the world. It would have to be, because his perfect sacrifice must be of infinite value. Although the cross is to them that perish foolishness, 1 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 18, it is not a sham, but saves all who believe. As one of the most respected Bible teachers of recent years said, "The Bible teaches most strongly the doctrine of unlimited atonement. The doctrine of limited atonement is specifically denied in Scripture." But Calvinists persist. Only Calvinism, with its effective atonement, limits man's power and exalts God's power and glory. On the contrary, God offers salvation on his terms. That multitudes reject his offer only sends them to hell, hardly anything of which they could boast. Those who reject Christ are no more in charge than the multitudes who daily break God's commandments. Were Adam and Eve in charge when they rebelled? Was Satan? Of course not. Did their rebellion give power to Satan and to Adam and Eve? Of course not. Nor did it, any more than man's continued rebellion today, take anything away, in even the slightest degree, from either God's power or his glory. The Calvinist is driven to such fallacious and unbiblical arguments in his desperation to defend an indefensible dogma. While some who call themselves Calvinists reject limited atonement, it is irrational to do so while accepting the other 4 points. A leading Calvinist author writes, "It is in this truth of limited atonement that the doctrine of sovereign election, and in fact sovereign predestination, with its two aspects of election and reprobation, comes into focus. In other words, the whole Calvinistic system collapses if limited atonement is not biblical, which indeed it is not.